Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Camera Work Podcast, episode 8. So we have, as always, Ray Tamarra.
Hey, what's going on? Thanks for listening.
Right, and we're joined by Medina today, who is my assistant.
Hello, everybody.
Right, so give them your full name.
My name is Medina Lynn, but I do go by Medina L.
Right, because I don't even really know your last name, because sometimes I see it as Medina Lynn, and sometimes I see it as Medina L, and I've never even really questioned which one is which, but it doesn't really matter, okay? So today we're going to talk about kind of what are some steps that someone like yourself should be doing, because you graduated from a school that was photo-related, correct?
Yes.
Right, where did you graduate from?
The Art Institute of New York.
Okay, so you're looking for a profession in some type of photo-related field or video?
Photo has always been like number one. Video was just kind of like I knew how to do it, so let me just brush up on it, but photography is just like what I want to do. It's what I imagine myself doing.
Right. Okay, so we're going to talk a lot about that today, but before we get to that, let's just sort of run through our week. So let's start with you, Ray. Anything interesting in the last week, or really 2 weeks, because we didn't put out a podcast last week. So anything within the last 2 weeks worth mentioning?
You know what? I haven't worked because I injured myself in jiu-jitsu. We talk about that a lot, and I got thrown, beautiful throw, shoulder collapse, couldn't hold the camera up, so I've been doing rehab.
Wow. So you have you shot at all? Like, have you been on the street at all?
No, I haven't, but I did do personal work, which was shooting the bonsai trees at the botanical gardens, and I realized how heavy that camera is because I had to support that D4 with 124 to 120 4.0. And it was definitely my arm, my left arm was giving out.
Right, but you did get out there and shoot something on your own that you like, the bonsai trees, not thinking about, well, how much money am I going to make shooting this? Mm-hmm. Right, which is good because that's something we've talked about a lot, and we're going to talk about it some more today. Right, Medina, what about you? Anything interesting this week?
Me, no, just kind of working as usual and just kind of brainstorming on what interesting personal projects that I would like to work on.
Right. Well, for me, it's been a good week. I shot a lot of stuff, a lot of BT shows and some other stuff. We just finished a hype hair shoot today, which we'll talk about in a minute. But one of the interesting things that happened to me last week, which happens quite a bit, is I got approached by an artist. And the artist said, you know, we want to do a shoot every month. We want to present this artist as like a fashion icon and show what is she wearing for spring, what is she wearing for fall. So we shoot her every month. So I said, okay, great. Why don't we do it on Ustream? So I send them a link to some Ustream shoots that I've done, and I say, like, I've got it all in place already. You know, we use the phone to do Ustream. I've got a good connection there that'll promote the shoot, and everyone will see it, and it'll be great. So they go, okay, we like the idea. And then the manager gets involved. The manager calls me up, and he says, hey, you know, I got some ways to make it better. You know, instead of doing it on the phone, we're going to shoot it on, like, the Canon 7D because it's higher resolution. And, you know, we're going to do a 2-camera shoot instead of 1-camera shoot. And I'm saying to the guy, well, I don't know if that can be done. I'm not sure if Ustream can accommodate like a 7D, and I'm not sure how you do 2 cameras and mix it all together and stuff. It just killed me because he had all these ideas and no way of implementing them, which is a funny thing because anybody can come up with an idea. The real skill is having an idea and either finding people who can implement it or being able to implement it yourself. But as soon as I had the conversation with him, I knew the whole project was dead. It was just dead. And I went home and I told my wife, I said, well, you know that shoot I was going to do with the artist? Yeah, it's not going to happen. And she's like, why not? And I just said, well, because the manager's got better ideas of how to do it than my idea, so it's not going to happen. And sure enough, it's been like 2 months and we haven't shot anything with that. So
well, it's kind of like, I feel as if that everybody needs to stay in their own lane. So if you're a manager, just manage your artist. If you're a photographer, do photography. For video, right. Let me run the video.
Right.
When everybody does their job and is on top of their job,
right. And at least, like, if I give you an idea, I'm showing you I can implement my idea. You just got an idea, like, okay,
use
but
this big flashy camera on Ustream.
Right. Yeah. Well, how are we gonna get the 7D on Wi-Fi? I don't know. Maybe it has it, but I don't know. It just drove me crazy, you know. But today was a good day because we shot hype hair, right? And both of you actually assisted me, right? Which, on behalf of Ray, I'm extremely appreciative because Ray does not need to assist me. Ray just kind of comes out and helps, which I really appreciate. That, like, if he's free, he'll be like, yeah, I'll pop in and out and. He took off like twice to do some other stuff, but, you know, it was great that he was here. And then you did quite a bit, right? But why don't you just explain what was the shoot? And as an assistant, what were your duties on the shoot?
Well, Hype Hair does this thing where they have like a celeb lookalike. So we bring in a whole bunch of just regular models who look like celebrities. my job is basically just capturing all the behind-the-scenes shots, so step-by-step makeup and hair, just making sure, you know, we get each step-by-step.
Right, and you said just, but it's a little more complicated than just, because you're doing 4 makeup photos per model.
So you have to stay on top of it. It's very hectic when a bunch of ladies are in here getting beautified, and then you have to pull them to get their shots. Right,
because you have to take them, like you have somebody doing their hair, then you've got to take her away from that person and get a picture of her in stage 1 of the hair, and then later on you do stage 2 and stage 3. So you're doing 4 hair shots and 4 makeup shots for what we did, 4 models today.
4 models.
Right, so it ends up being 16 shots. That's a lot of work. In my opinion, it's a lot of work, which is why I actually had to have somebody else do that, because I find it's hard for me to do that while at the same time I'm trying to do the real shoot, right? So what else are you doing as an assistant on a day like today?
If John needs me to come hold up a light or to get a power cable, I'm just like a right-hand man. So just trying to be everywhere on set at all times. Make myself accessible. So.
Right. She's underselling it, but there's still more you're doing. You're doing the releases, which we use the Easy Release app, which I find makes things on the iPhone really easy to do a model release, because you don't have to keep track of them, you don't have to scan them, you do it right there on the iPhone.
Organizes all your models, gets all your information, takes the picture of it.
Right.
I don't know what else to do.
Yeah, it's beautiful, right? But you're doing that, you're ordering the food. What else was she doing? You did video, behind the scenes video.
I don't realize how much that I do. I'm just like, okay, I'm just doing this. I never realized how much that I actually do on set. So it is kind of a lot that I'm doing.
Right, it is a lot. But ultimately, I'm thinking what you really want to do is not be assisting, but you want to be sort of running the show, doing your own shoots. And it would certainly pay a lot more money than what I'm giving you. So let's hope that...
I love being here on shoot, so it's always helpful to me. I never take that for granted.
So the question would be to you, what have you done to get your career started? How long have you been out of school?
I've been out of school for about 3 months.
Right, okay. So what have you done? Let me back it up. Let's give you a different question. How has the school, let's blame the school, then we're going to blame Medina, but let's start off blaming the school. How has this school prepared you for the job market?
They haven't really. Me, as my own person, I've always been the type of person to go out there and not wait for, you know, school or anybody to give me work. So majority of the work that I get, I get it on my own. As far as like school helping me get jobs or anything like that, it does not work that easy. They have 1,000 other students that they're assisting, so why should my career be important to them if they have 1,000 other people that they need to be assisting?
And I know when I taught high school for 10 years before I became a full-time photographer, and I took some education courses, although I didn't graduate with a degree in education from the 4-year degree, but they teach you how to teach, and they do all this stuff, you know, here's how to teach, and here's how to make a point, but they never teach you about discipline. And then you get in the classroom and you have all these tools about how to teach, and then you say to the kids, like, take out the books, and the kids are like, no. And you're sitting there going, well, wait a minute. I don't know how to deal with this. They never taught me how to deal with discipline problems or how to deal with a kid who says no. And you're lost. All of a sudden now you can't teach. And some people will say, well, that's not school's job to prepare you for that. And I think that's the situation you end up in. Like maybe they taught you certain things, but maybe not necessarily like, well, how do I get a job once I leave the school?
It's kind of like your work gets you the job, and I've been learning that a lot, that I have to build my own work because nobody else is going to just be like, hey, Medina, you want to do this job? And you haven't even seen any of my work. So it's the work that's going to get me my job. So that's what I have to put forth every day. Right,
that's huge. But Ray, how did you start actually getting work? Where did you transition from before you were doing photography?
Well, before I was a street vendor, basically, and as a photographer, I was street vending while I was working as a photographer. They would see me on the scene at the clubs, and they would see my pictures because I had a site that I would publish my own pictures, and that got to be popular so that they started hiring me to do events. And I continued to work and get better at the party photos and making sure that I got the right equipment and making sure that I was at the various events and making sure that I was publishing the shots and then connecting with the people so that if there was a job, I would be considered. Like we said, I think we talked about with you before, my first paid job was shooting a concert at MSG, and I knew that I couldn't do it with the camera that I had, but I didn't want to pass up the job. So I called you, and I said, hey, this is a gig for $500. I can't do it. Why don't you shoot the job for me? You can take the money. I can find out how to shoot that job so that in the future, I'll be capable of doing that job. And then I would have loved to have that $500, but I knew that getting the job and being able to do the job was the most important thing.
You looked at it long term. It was actually very smart of you, because you didn't go, I can make a quick $500 Friday and screw up the job and then never get called again.
Oh, I did that too. So.
Well, at least on this one occasion you didn't do it. But you said, let me call somebody else in, let him help shoot the job and make sure that the job is on point, and then you can keep the client. So, and I think I may have done a couple with you similar to that over some time, because I definitely had more gear than you initially. Now, Medina is always entering in a different time, because it's funny, because like I entered photography in like 1988, and it was nothing like the way you would enter it in 2013, and you entered in what, maybe 2004 or something?
Yeah, 2004.
Right, and to me it's different from 2004 to 2013. Again, that's a 10-year difference, and there's a lot of things different. And some of this I've spoken to you about, personally, about like what the main steps are. But let's go back a bit. So how did I meet you initially?
You met me at my internship at BET last January. They told me I would be interning in the digital department for 106 The Park, working with photos, and then I was stuck with John McCarr. Right.
So your initial job was what? What was the first thing I assigned you to do?
Write a journal entry. Right,
before, in terms of the work at BET. Like, what did you do at BET in terms of working with me?
Editing pictures, captioning pictures, picking out the good from the bad, uploading them, sending them off to another person to put them up on the app and on the site.
Right, and again, she said just again. See, she may be underselling herself, which is not the way to go in photography. Okay, this was a huge thing she did, because I average 1,000 shots a show at BET, sometimes even more. And the show is 90 minutes or 2 hours, and the edit needs to be done basically by the time the show is over. And she's on my computer, so the last thing I want to do is stick around and wait. When the show is over, I want to go home. So she's editing the 1,000 or so photos during the show. And we'd be running cards all during the program as soon as one guest finishes.
And you got to pick out 10 from that.
Right.
And that's critical. I mean, when you do someone's edit, you have to have the confidence. Because I certainly don't, if I don't have confidence in you as my editor, then I don't know if you're going to pick out the shots that need to be picked out. And at the end of the day, what you pick out has my name on it.
Right, it's a reflection of you. And then the funny thing is initially she did have some issues with editing where she didn't understand it. Like, she might be looking at a shot where I cut someone's head off, and she's going, well, the head's cut off, boom, it's gone. And I'm not trying to brag or anything, because I don't think I ever do that on the podcast, but I do have an education background, so I taught for 10 years, and I look at like, oh, she's an intern, I'm going to teach her. I'm not going to just like use her to get my work done easier. So then I would stop and go, let me explain why I shot this. And then you just mentioned the word purpose, because that was one of the things I explained to you about when I'm shooting at BET, right? Just explain that about the purpose of different shots, how they can be shot.
Like you said, you may be getting someone's head cut off, but there's something important about the shot that you found important about the shot, and which I learned when I was doing my own photography on the set of 106 Park as well. So there's something more behind the shot. And
but we would talk about how, like, well, maybe the wide shot with the Kellogg's advertisement that is sponsoring the contest on 106, well, that shot goes to Kellogg's, and then there's a tight shot, a head shot that gets used for some other publication, and there's a head-to-toe shot that BET tries to push out to a fashion blog, and then there's a tight shot of the shoes. There's all these different shots we're doing for different purposes. And you did manage to learn that, so when you're doing the edit, you understood, well, maybe there's a reason that this is shot in a way that initially to you might have looked like, well, why is it shot that way? So she picked that up really, really well, the editing, which again is a huge job, because you had to FTP it, you're emailing pictures, you're editing, and you're captioning the photographs. So eventually what I did was, because she did that so well, I moved her into shooting. So I would usually shoot the show with like a Nikon and a Leica camera. really 2 Nikons and a Leica, so I started giving her one of the Nikons and give her like the 24 to 120, which I think is the same lens you bought from me, right? So I would give her that lens and just put her on the floor and explain to her how to shoot, the technical aspects, and again, those aspects of the different types of shots that you have to get. And to me, that's a big compliment. If I put you in a shooting spot, I can't give you a better compliment than that. And you mentioned your name. Well, everything she shot went under my name because I have a contract with BET, and they have certain rights with pictures from John Ricard. I can't turn in pictures with Medina Lynn on it because they can't do anything with those photos. A contract doesn't have her name on it. It puts them in a weird position. So she shot under my name. And I don't think I've ever mentioned this to her before, but she actually came up with a shot that I had never done, which was interesting. It was Justin Bieber when they walk on set. I always used to shoot it from the front, and there was this side angle. And she was on the side. I would always put her in a different spot than me. And she shot Justin Bieber walking in from the side. And I'm like, that's a better angle than the front. So most of the time after that, with the arrivals, I started shooting it from the side of the stage. But it was a shot she discovered by being in like the B position instead of the A position. So she did that really well in terms of shooting. And for whatever reason, the internship ends at some point. And then I took you on working in my studio, you know, whatever I can use, assisting, and you do a lot of stuff there. But getting back to the real question, what are you going to do to get a real job that's paying real money and building the career? What are the obstacles that you're facing now?
Just getting out there and shooting. That's one of my biggest problems, is just getting up and actually doing it. Like I said earlier, like my body of work is going to get me my job, so I have to be shooting constantly, regardless if it's practice.
And I think this is somewhat of a new understanding, because you started to mention one of the first things you did, one of the first things I had you do when you started working with me at BET was I said, go out and get a journal. I'm going to give you some journal assignments. And one of the earliest assignments I gave you was, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Yeah. And I said, just write about that. What do you think about it? What does it make you think? What does it make you feel, right? At that time, what did you write about that topic?
I basically wrote that it was who you know instead of what you know, because I was seeing it from a young adult's point of view, and I see all these young people who are connected with up-and-coming artists or producers or whoever, and they can get these gigs and their work is not up to par. And then you have me like, okay, I'm not saying I'm the best, but I'm learning from you and from, you know, my surroundings, and I'm trying to be a great photographer, and I can't get that work because I don't know those people. But that's how I felt at that time, and that's how society kind of portrays it. It's like, if you know all these fancy people,
but you know why? But the reason is, it's interesting your society portrays it that way. Yeah, because it's a bunch of guys who suck at what they do going, well,
it's
the
like,
reason...
hello, I'm here, I can do it.
And they're going, but the reason I'm not getting work is because I don't know the right people. No, the reason you can't get any work is because you suck at what you do. Yeah. And they don't want to admit that. But one of the things that we discussed that I tried to explain to you was, when you're at the low level, which is where you were at that point, and to some degree still there now, is that you're looking at clients who are completely unskilled. So the client on that level is a guy who puts on some, dance party on Friday night at the club, and he's looking for a guy that he's going to pay $250 to come out and shoot the party. Or the client is like a guy who wants to be a clothing designer, and he's got 3 girls from the block as his models, and he's got $300, and he wants somebody to come out and shoot that in some big empty room he got his hands on. That's the client. He's not an educated client. He's not a client with a huge budget. He's not educated enough or savvy enough to judge photography. So absolutely, at that level, he's hiring his friend. He's hiring some guy that can't shoot to save his life, and you might be a better photographer. And you don't get that gig if you don't know how to work the person properly. But the mistake that some people at that starting off level is they think it stays that way. And it does not. And this is what I explained to you. Go pick up XXL. Go pick up Rolling Stone. Go pick up W Magazine, which is this big fashion magazine. It's like bigger than 12 inches, I think. I don't know. It's big. It's like 300 pages. And you look in that magazine, and every page, the photography is fantastic. And I look at it like, damn, I wish I could shoot anything that looked as good as anything in here. The product shots, the ads, the studio stuff, the location. It just blows my mind. The photography is so good in there. There's nobody getting work in those publications that I mentioned who sucks at photography. That does. I don't care who you know. You are not getting those shoots, those ad campaigns. So that was really, I think, one of the most important points that I really wanted to communicate to you, and I think you understood it. So now you're in a place where you're not thinking to yourself, my job is to get to know all the right people. You got to do that. That's important. But you understand the real key is what?
To be good at what you do.
Right. To be good at what you do.
To be great. It's not just good.
Right. Because anybody can be good today because the cameras are good.
Exactly.
And then you need this body of work that's really, really strong. Right. Now, Ray found a video recently. Right. So what was the video, that B&H video that Ray sent it to me, I sent it to Medina, and we're like, well, we got to talk about this for a minute. So what was the video exactly?
Before we get to the video, what I wanted to say, you made a point that you have to be you have to know your craft, and that's important. That's very important. You have to know what you're doing. And in W, you see all these men and women who gotten the gig because they have great photos. But you can't discount who you know too. So on top of being on top of your photographic game, you have to be on top of your marketing game. You have to differentiate yourself from the pack, and that's what I got from this video. I saw since I was.
Don't talk about the video yet. Stay on that subject because we're going to talk about that in a second before you get to the video. Keep talking about the knowing the people part because I want to make a comment on that too.
Knowing the people, you basically have to market yourself. You have to toot your own horn. Because if you don't, then no one else will. So not only do you have to be good, you have to take photos. And this is what I suffer from because I don't toot my own horn. I like to be anonymous. I like to not have to talk to anyone. A lot of the times they ask me if I know English because I don't talk. And that's fine. When they say that's what I want. I don't want you to notice me. Right. But I still want to get those photos. Right. But that's hurt me because
I'm the same way. Exactly, because I can go both ways because you can see me at places like I used to go to music videos a lot. You and I too, we used to get hired to shoot music pictures at music videos all the time. It was a 12, 14-hour gig, good pay. And sometimes I'd go to videos and I got my Howard Stern on and the headphones, and I don't want to talk to anybody. And I could go there and people didn't even know I was there because to some degree you want it to be anonymous on a set, to some degree because you want to be out of the way of the crew making the video, because if you were in their way, they would just like, get this dude, the director would just tell the AD, like, get this dude off the set, and then you were just blocked. It sucked. So a lot of times I'd just be in the cut, you barely knew I was there, and I nailed every shot. Some of the best work I ever did photographically was on a set of music videos. But then other times, like, you come to my studio and I'm in my own world and I'm blasting, my Tupac, and I'm running around doing card tricks and I'm teasing all the models and I'd seem like the most social guy in the world. And occasionally at music videos, I would be that way if the mood was just crazy. Like we were at that Puffy, Nelly, and somebody else, Biggie. Well, Biggie was dead, but
it was a Biggie remix. It was what is it?
It was Nasty Girl, but the remix might have been Nasty Boy or whatever. They changed the name or something. But
Nelly, and then it had Naomi Campbell, and it had just a whole lot of.
And it was just great. Like that's one of the videos where you and I, we're talking to people, we're just having a ball because it's like a joke, even though we're working. But
because there was 75 other extras, just extras there.
Yeah, and they were fun because they had nothing to do. You could sit and talk to them. But the point though is that I'm like you, where I can go both ways, and sometimes I have to turn on the social part of me because very often I'd rather just sit and listen to Howard Stern. But it is important to have the social part. And the thing that's funny to me is some people try to dismiss it, especially the ones who don't have a good social ability. So they act like what they're trying to communicate is like, look, I know photography, and all he knows is how to deal with people. He shouldn't get the job. And I look at it different than that, because if you think about it, you can learn photography in 2 months. It's not that big a deal to learn, especially if you're going to shoot one thing like just sports. Like I taught her how to shoot BET in a few weeks, But to understand people, to be able to have that ability to walk into a building and be able to bond with the security guy at the door, and then bond with the receptionist, and then go into the president of the publicity department for that record label and bond with that person, all those different levels, and you're just bobbing and weaving and you're comfortable, and you make them all feel good because you compliment each one of those people on their shoes and what they're wearing. Like, that's a huge skill. Go to the bookstore. There's a whole section on how to talk to your kid. And there's another section how to talk to your boss and how to talk to your wife. Like, nobody knows how to talk to anybody else in this world. So if you have that ability, it is a huge, huge ability. And you should never discount it and act like, oh, he just knows people. No, if he has that ability, it's a great ability. The problem is, though, some of the people, and man, I wish we could name names, because like me and Ray, we could just rattle off the names, but there were guys, we ain't gonna
do it. Who it is. It's just, it is a great ability to have, and if you're interested in doing it, there's a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People that tells you how to step by step do that, to really just to be memorable. Right, but what some people do with that, the problem is, though, they're so good at dealing with people that they don't develop the technical part. Yeah. And it drives me crazy, because I'm like, dude, you're so good with people. You can learn how to work that camera in an hour. Like, you don't even understand the white balance. Like, you can learn white balance on a subway train from Brooklyn to Manhattan. And these guys, some of them will not learn it, and they only work the people part. But again, they hit a ceiling. These guys are not shooting album covers. They're not doing a cover of XXL, etc. So you can't just know people. You really do need them both, right? But let's get to the video, right? So talk about the video that you came across, that you shared with us, that we both thought was pretty interesting. The video was, it was getting off the couch, how to turn a personal project into commercial work and back into a personal project. And it was fascinating because...
do you remember who it was by?
It was by this photographer named Jennifer Pottheiser. And she basically went through the steps on how she began as a photographer, how she would take photos of causes that she was passionate about. She was working with charitable organizations, and she leveraged that into commercial work, into paid assignments. Right. And then finally, she figured out a way to continue to transition back to her personal work.
Right. Well, once she got more status as a commercial photographer, it empowered her now to be like, I'm a hot shot. Let me work with you on this personal project. Right. But it was interesting that we talked many times that you should be an interesting person. It should start there, and that's what she was trying to say. She didn't sit on a couch. She cares about animals, so she was joining these like animal rights, whatever, I don't know what they were. And then photo opportunities arose for her as a result, right? Yes. What did you take away from the video?
I took away always work on a personal project, even on a paying job. One of the things that she did was she would be shooting, basketball players and athletes on white. Right. And this is what the company asked for, just give me this on white. But she was like, well, maybe if I take 10 more seconds and pull you to the side to this nice staircase, then I can, maybe nail a good shot. And she did end up nailing
But this was the beginning of the video. She did exactly what you said. The client would go, we just want them on white. And then she'd go, let me get them over here. And then she'd create a much better shot with like more dramatic lighting of them on a brick wall. And the video started there, and it was really like irking me, because I get that way. And I kept going like, that's not personal work. That's not personal work. Everybody does that. And I was offended by that being called personal work. I really was, because a lot of photographers do that. We go and get that other shot. So for me, again, if I'm shooting a job on the Nikon, I've got my Leica, and I pull you aside and I do a different shot on a Leica. And I think quite a few photographers do that. That doesn't fit the definition of personal work for me.
That doesn't fit your definition.
My definition, yes.
You have to be clear on that. That's her definition of personal work, and you can't dismiss her.
I know. Well, I did. I watched it, and I just got really annoyed. But again, I get that way. I'm not saying I'm right. I do get that way. But so to me, that was not personal work. It was a smart thing to do, and you should do it. Of course, it can pay off, but it's not personal work. The stuff she talked about later in the video, and say her name again, please.
Jennifer Pottheiser.
Okay, so the stuff she did later in the video definitely fit my marvelous definition of personal work, right? But what did you take away from as it went further along? Did you notice the difference in what she started doing later versus just pulling somebody aside for 15 seconds?
I noticed that she started developing more personal that felt personal to her, like the mothers, the Olympic mothers.
Right.
That was something that was personal to her that she was able to pitch to a magazine that ended up picking it up. So
right. So, but what did she do? What was the project exactly? Explain it just a little better. What did she do?
Basically, she was just capturing images of Olympic mothers. They just had children, or they have already had children, and how hard it was, because they weren't going to stop their day just for her. Like, she mentioned that she was moving the entire, they didn't stop the whole day. Like, she was just snapping and snapping whatever went on throughout the day. So.
Right. And she did that. And again, that's something she cares about. Like, I mean, I'm not trying to sound rude, but like, I don't care about Olympic mothers. It doesn't touch me. It's not my thing. She cared about that. Yeah. To me, again, that fit the definition of a personal project. Certainly much more than, well, I'm going to pull you off white and throw you on a brick wall for 15 seconds. Very different. But she would do projects like that, and she did a lot of pet ones too, I think, right?
motivation.
Right. But these personal projects that enabled her to show clients something that really reflected her rather than a client's vision. And that started opening up doors, because then what would happen for her is like Nike might come across what she did with the Olympic mothers and go, well, hey, we want you to do something similar with this other project that we have. Or I think the Brooklyn Nets came up to her like, hey, we like what you did here. And
what it was she had, and everyone should go check it out. Her name is Jennifer Pottheiser. It's a B&H video. It's one of the lecture series that they have at the store. But what she did was, besides the animals that she photographed, she was also interested in sports. And she started photographing snowboarders. And those snowboarders, those photos of snowboarders led her to Nike. And Nike wanted to do something with snowboarders. And then from there, with basketball players. And then she did the Brooklyn Nets. And then she did NHL and Major League Baseball and just a whole lot of sports figures. And what she does, she prides herself on being able to nail shots of these men and women, these powerful men and women, in like 4 minutes. And that's absolutely fine. And then she'd been able, because she had worked so hard and she acquired this skill and acquired the experience to nail these shots of big superstars.
Right.
It allowed her to solicit these Olympic artists and say, this is what I've done with these superstars, but I really want to photograph you.
Right.
Because you're a mother and you're an Olympian, and I want to tell your story. And they would see all these people that she worked with and say, yeah, I need her to photograph.
Right. And the funny thing is what can happen for someone like Medina's age. You are how old?
21.
She's 21, you know. Anyway.
I'm not 21 and you aren't either.
No. But anyway, the thing is that sometimes what can happen for someone your age is, and you start looking at someone like her and you go, well, of course she can get these photo opportunities because she's got this strong body of work that she's done over the last 3 or 4 or 5 years. How am I supposed to get my foot in the door when I don't have that work? I don't have these celebrities to use to get the next celebrity. But I look at it differently, because when you're that young, I think there's a lot of advantages that you have that the older person doesn't have. And I'm going to give you some of those, okay? For one thing, the way your brain works at 21 is very different than the way your brain works at 31 or 41 or 51. It just is. You can scientifically look that up. They show how the decision-making of a young person versus an older comes from a different part of the brain. And I know I can look at things that I did when I was like 24, and I just go, wow, I wouldn't do that again. I just wouldn't. It could just be the simplest thing in the world. Like I remember when I taught, you'd share classrooms, and I loved Malcolm X, and I went and I bought a Malcolm X calendar and had like 16 photo calendar, and I took all the photos and I put them on the wall of the classroom that I taught in. And the next teacher who came in would be like, hey, that's not right. Why do you have 16 photos of Malcolm X? Like, I don't want to teach in a Malcolm X classroom. It doesn't reflect me as a teacher. And my attitude was like that's fucking Malcolm X. Like, I'm not taking it down. That needs to be up there. This is important, and that should be there, whatever. And that was how I thought at 24. And I love Malcolm to this day, but I look at it differently now and go, I wouldn't make someone else teach in a room that didn't reflect, the guy was like, he was Mr. Levine. Like, he didn't want to be in that room with Malcolm X all over the wall. I understand it differently now. I'm not saying it's better. I'm just saying my brain works differently now than it did then. And that can be a huge benefit for you, because when you're 21, your brain isn't going like, well, that's an electric cord. It can only be used as an electric cord.
More creative.
Right, you're more creative now because you can look at that cord and go, well, what if we take the cord? And your brain just works that way, and you've got that advantage. And at your age, you're able to, you don't have to explain anything to anyone, because a lot of times as you get older, like that woman, she might have children, she might have a husband, or whatever, she's in a relationship, and she doesn't have the freedom to just say, I'm going to move to Kansas for 3 weeks and shoot X nuns. She can't do it because someone's going to go, well, how am I getting to school? Or the husband's going, well, when are you coming back home? But at your age, you might have a boyfriend, but it doesn't mean anything like the way a long-term relationship might work if you're older, and you have that freedom to pursue what you want, or the way a lot of people just don't have the freedom to shoot anything they want. Again, because you have to explain it or to buy what you want to buy. It's always the joke on camera forums. Guys are like, yeah, don't tell my wife. I put that on Twitter all the time, like, hey, nobody tell my wife, but I just bought a new Leica lens, and I put it on Twitter. I tag her on it, But you don't have to worry about things like that. And the last one I'll give you is you're also at an age where you can work on something like 24 hours straight and sleep for 3 hours and you're fine. You can recover so much more quickly, whereas older people have more difficult time like working long like that in terms of concentration or physically staying up. So there's some tremendous advantages that you get from being 21. There's this freedom that you have. And to me, that's how you should look at it, and never look at that person who has the better book as being ahead of you. I mean, you're going to be there eventually anyway. We're all going to turn 31 and 41. So enjoy the 21 and take the advantages of 21 and put them to use to get out there and do things that she cannot do, things that I can't do, things that Ray can't do, and you'll be ahead of the game.
Definitely. I agree.
Right. Any other observations from the video, for that specific video?
Well, keep in contact with people that you meet. She always kept in contact with people that she met, because you never know what her images or who might need these images. Shoot and market and shoot and market some more, like, because you are selling your work, like,
right.
you represent your brand, or your company, or whatever it is that you're representing. So, and take pictures about things that you're passionate about. That's what she did. She took pictures of dogs. And she took it for free. She never expected a check from it. She did it because she loved taking pictures and she loved dogs. Right. So just always take
right.
pictures.
And I think,
and she was able to segue that into paid work. Yes. I mean, right. It's not that those pictures are worthless. She's definitely passionate about that, and it shows. That passion shows in the photos, and there's people who saw that passion and wanted her to recreate that passion with their subject.
Right. And the thing that's so crucial is that you really have to find a world. This is just my opinion, rather, because I tend to speak in ways that sound like it's the law. Unfortunately, Ray checks me on it when I do, so this is just my opinion. But one thing that can work is you try to find a world and expose everyone else to that world. That's one way to look at it, is what world can you show us? Because you can't just sit and wait for assignments. Because again, when you were shooting BET with me, you couldn't tell my pictures from yours. Once I put a D3 in your hand and I'm using a D3S, whatever, the pictures look the same if we're in the same place. And we talked about this on the episode with Pete Monsanto. I'm not sure what number it is, but on that episode, we talked about how if a client assigns it to me and Ray, it's going to look largely similar because there are parameters being dictated by the assignment. But if Ray goes out on his own, he's going to shoot bonsai trees. I guarantee you, if I shot for 1,000 years, I would never take a picture of a tree. I just don't care. But I go out, I shoot the subway, I shoot couples kissing on the subway. That's what I shoot. So our pictures don't look alike when we do personal work. And if you're following the idea of being an interesting person, which is something we talk about on a podcast all the time, if you're doing jujitsu and you're into all these other things, these hobbies on your own, then there are worlds that you're in that you can show us. And like, I look at your Instagram and all I seem to see is like people who look like they look like Wiz Khalifa.
Just
I don't know.
Weird people, just artsy people. I go to an art school, so that's all. Like, you'll
right.
see that.
And that's the world you should be showing us. Like, who are these guys that are like so skinny that like their legs look like my arms? Like, show us that world. Yes. Who are these people? What's important to them? What do they do? How do they spend their time? Where do they shop? The whole thing. Bring me into that world. And a good album does the same thing. Straight Outta Compton. You felt like you were in Compton, and you love being in that world. And that Kid Cudi album, that Mr. Rager album, whatever it's called. Like, I listened to that, and it just sounds like a guy who's on a million drugs, and I don't know if he is or isn't, but it just sounds like a guy on drugs all over the place, and you feel like you're in that world when you play that album. And that's what you want to do with your photography, just like a good writer does. They take you into a world. They don't just sit back and go, well, tell me what to write about. Kid Cudi isn't going to tell me what to rap about. No, he's got a world that he's taking you to. And that's what you need to be doing with your photography, is take us to a world that we haven't seen and get that work out there. And that's important.
Well, okay. I'm definitely brainstorming, like I said at the beginning of the video, definitely brainstorming on, interesting personal projects that could be interesting for me and interesting for everybody else to see. So you will be seeing some things.
Good. Right. And one of you mentioned the word, I think it was you, about passion, because that's really where it starts. It's, if you're passionate about it, make me feel the passion. And Ray and I have done the type of exercise where, like, we're just trying to see someone who's passionate about what they do and just be in that moment with them. You know what I'm saying? Like, just go watch, a spoken word poet who really cares about what he's doing. It's beautiful. Go watch a dancer who cares about what she's doing and just feed off how passionate she is about it. That's what you want to communicate in your photos. Like, I care about this world of these Wiz Khalifa guys or whatever they are, and girls, whatever. Just, you know, that you care about this and show it to us, and maybe it'll move us is what you want to do. Right. Now, Ray, I don't know, I guess because, yeah, I just realized, I was about to say Ray had a second video that he showed us. And I was going to say, well, I don't know, Ray's been watching a lot of video, but then I realized Ray can't work right now because the shoulder. So I guess Ray's just
any videos that you find, definitely. I definitely find the video.
I mean, that's one of the things that I've been doing is that there's this thing called TED Talks, and it's fascinating.
I've seen a bunch of those.
They talk about so many different things, and sometimes I can't even understand them, but that's even better because it makes me expand my thinking. Right.
At the risk of cutting you off, did you see the one with the model that was so funny? The model who got up there and she said, like, I'm a model and I've got like the dumbest job in the world and no one should aspire to my job. It was just really interesting. I got to figure out what it was called, but it was funny.
I didn't see that, but the one that really got me going is that there was this woman. She was a singer, and early on she would be like a Statue of Liberty, and she would get money, donations for being a Statue of Liberty, and she would share a moment with the person who donated money. And she started doing her music. She got on a label. She got kicked off the label. And, she continued to ask. And it's called The Power of Asking. And
but what was she asking?
She was just asking for help.
Okay.
Being able to ask for help. Being able to connect with another person. And she was connecting, personally with people, and they would invite her to their homes, and then she said, I need help on my music, and she put up Kickstarter program, and she raised $1.5 million.
Wow. I'm gonna go ask her for some money. She's so big on asking.
And it's possible. And you look at these things, these inspiring stories of people doing something, or people being motivated, or just like getting off the couch.
She started off as one of those Statue of Liberty people stand there and you're supposed to give them $1 and take a picture. Because
she started.
I'm so like in Times Square, it is infested. I mean, infested now with Elmos and Mickey Mouses, and I am sick of it. I
was there too. I was with my 452 lovemaking positions for $1. I was there. I was making that money. That was my.
I'd rather that than these guys. It just makes me sick. And not to knock anybody's hustle, but that hustle I'm going to knock. It's just gross. Like you're violating someone's copyright. And then you stand there, people taking pictures with you for God knows what reason would you want this photo. And then they got the little bag asking for $1. Like you're watching Elmo on Sesame Street in the daytime teaching you the alphabet. And then at night he's begging for money. You're going, well, why am I learning the alphabet?
I should be out there with a need to pay my tuition.
Yeah, and then you dress up with a big clown head. It drives me crazy. But there was an interesting TED Talks that you came across that you sent to me, and then I sent it to her, right? What was that? How would you explain that?
I think that was another dynamic young person, or whatever. He was talking about trying to be inspired, and he saw another TED Talk, and what he wanted to do was he wanted to document 1 second of his life. And so he would take videos of 1 second or multiple seconds and choose which one and then string them all together. And when you see the video, you're like, that's a great idea.
Yeah, it was weird. What did you make of it, Medina, when you saw the talk or watched the final product?
It was very inspiring. I liked how he did it with no filter. Like he captured the moment as he saw it. So if he saw it with his eyes like that, that's how, the video was portrayed. It was kind of like you're just blinking, and every time you blink, it's a new shot. So I definitely found it inspiring. And he mentioned something about what if the whole world got on this project and did this project, how amazing it would be. So.
Right, because he made the point that if he's showing his month, well, he's shooting a 1 second clip of every day of the month. Well, then how about your March 3rd, your March 3rd, and my March 3rd? And let's look at March 3rd from 50 different people in 50 different countries rather than my month of March. So it's an interesting thing he had. But when I watched it, it actually made me sad. And I don't know, there's something, whenever I see something like a movie or a book that shows someone's whole life, that makes me sad. I don't know why. There's something about it. But like that movie, The Time Traveler's Wife, I cannot watch. I watched it and it disturbs me. It was just this guy, his life, and he's trying to hook up with this girl and they're jumping through time. And it's so sad. Like I'll watch a movie like that and I can't sleep. And there was something about those moments, and I look at my daughter and like every time I turn on the iPad, there's this old picture of her when she was like 3 and she's 8 now. And the picture just makes me so sad. I'm like, she's not 3, she's 8. And I don't know. It just, makes me sad. And something about the video did that. And it was interesting that during the course of one of the months that he showed, and remember, when he shows you a month, it takes like 30 seconds. It's 1 second per day. It was someone who was like dying or someone in a hospital,
yes.
remember? And it was like 3 days straight of people just like moping in a hospital. And collectively, the 3 days turn into 3 seconds in a video, but you remember it and it affects you. And he said, I did not want to just capture the good times. I just want to capture the reality. Whether that was riding the subway. Sometimes he would just show himself like watching, he wouldn't show himself, he would show his bird's eye view, his view of watching a computer screen or whatever. And, you know, it was very emotional for me. I don't know, because it sounds so simple, you know. So of course I downloaded the app right away because I started looking it up. I'm like, I'm going to do this, you know, and then I download the app and I download it in because I get into it, then I make everybody's got to do it. The whole world's got to do what I'm saying. So I go and tell my wife, okay, start shooting a video clip every day. I'll explain it later. You know, then I made my daughter, I took another iPhone that's laying in the house. I'm like, you have to shoot a video every day of something. So now I've got like the whole family on it. And I know me, in like 3 days, I'm going to just drop it, which is sad because it is such a great project. But I know my track record with stuff like this. And in like a week, I'm just going to be like, I don't want to be bothered. This is too much work, and I'll stop. But I think it is an amazing project, and I'm kind of hoping I stay with it because I know, like, when I do Instagram and Twitter, they're not satisfying for me because I never get enough feedback. Like, if I post a photo that I think is interesting, I want like 50 people going like, well, where'd you take that? Or how did you shoot it? Or who's the person? And I want the dialogue. And then you might get like somebody liked. It means they pushed a thumb twice on their phone. It just means nothing to me. Or you don't get enough feedback. So it's not interesting to me. But this project that you're really doing 100% for yourself, like this is just my life. It doesn't have to be interesting to anybody but me. Maybe I'll stick to it because the payoff is just me liking it rather than an Instagram where I post it and I'm expecting someone else to see it. So I'm up to 4 clips. I did one of this girl's lips today when we were doing the hype hair shoot. So I've got 4 seconds shot. Hopefully at some point I'll have an hour or something.
You know what was the most fascinating thing about that clip to me? Because what he talked about was, I mean, for me, it motivates you to do something different with your life. Because you want to capture that. You want to capture something. You don't want to, okay, I'm going to capture myself at this microphone. And that's Monday through Sunday.
Well, if you pick something even worse, let's say it was just watching TV.
Right.
So let's say your second for Monday was watching TV. Okay, cool, that's what you do. And then Tuesday, your second was watching TV. And then you got to Wednesday and you were like, you mean I can't find an interesting 1 second?
Well, hopefully you're not sitting on the couch all day. Like, you just take your camera anywhere. Like,
you might be, but there are people sitting on the couch all day. Right. Not everybody has a podcast, you know. Right. People are not necessarily getting out of the house. And it does make you look at your life and say, is there something interesting? And for me, imagine I'm only on day 4, but at the moment, I found myself in the opposite position where it's like abundance. Like, I'm in the house going like, I want to do my daughter, get a picture of her. And I went, well, I got her on day 2. And then I'm like, well, let me get my wife. And I kind of go, well, she's not going anywhere. I can get her on a day when I can't find anything else to get. Because as far as I know, she's going to be here for the rest of the month. And then I'll be like, maybe I'll do a BET. And then I go like, yeah, but you know, like Mindless Behavior's coming to BET next week. And let me get them instead of the host. And I'm looking at it at the moment like there's this abundance of content. I'm like, wow, I can only pick 1 second. You know, today it snowed. And I'm like, I should get the snow because I love the snow. And then when I was in the studio, this girl had these great lips. I'm like, no, I'm just going to do a tight shot of her lips getting the lip gloss on them. You know, so your life should be that you're going, man, how do I pick 1 second out of this amazing life that I'm living? And again, if your life is amazing like that and you surround yourself with amazing people who are doing interesting things, who support what you do, then you should be able to make an interesting 1 second a day, and you should be able to do these personal projects that people want to see because you're not just sitting on a couch watching TV. That's the common thread for both of these, the 1 second guy and the Jennifer Pottheiser. You know, she's not sitting on a couch. She's out there at animal shelters and all these things doing her own work, which I think is great. You know, now, one other thing we did with you when I first started with you, anything else anybody wanted to say about that project? Okay, one of the other things I did with you was I recommended a book to you, right?
Yes.
So what was the book?
Russell Simmons' Do You? Basically the 12 laws to access the power in you and achieve happiness.
Right. Now, I think the book is interesting because I think the book is pretty simple and pretty basic. But when you came to BET, I don't know if you were 19 or 20, but at that point, you might not know the content in the book. Like when I read the book, there was nothing in the book that I read that I went, you know, that never occurred to me. In contrast to something which is, I'm not trying to say I'm so smart. I'm saying like when I read The Game by Neil Strauss, which we've talked about in the podcast, probably every episode, I was fascinated. I was blown away. I'm telling everybody about it, and it changed my way of thinking completely. And a lot of books have done that for me. We talked about the War of Art, and that made me think. But this book, there was nothing in it that didn't occur to me already, that I wasn't already living. But I thought it was a nicely written way for someone to make someone else understand, if they did not understand themselves, these types of ways of thinking. But can you mention anything that you got from that book specifically that maybe you didn't think of or whatever?
This book is basically just like a wake-up call. Me as a young artist, I'm struggling, looking for, you know, different gigs and everything, and I'm looking for, you know, the check behind it and the reward behind it. One of the things that Russell Simmons was basically saying, if you're doing it for an award or you're doing it to get a check, you're not giving it your best. You're just going to leave it at, okay, I got the check, so I'm good. No, you have to give everything your all. Don't expect anything. Nobody's going to put you on. Nobody's going to hand you anything. You're like I was saying, and that's what I got from the book. Your work is going to get you what you need to get.
And that put you on is funny because when you're on the outside looking in, like if you were looking at Russell Simmons and you wanted some type of career in hip hop, whether it was photography or anything, it looks to you, you're just like, my God, this guy employs so many people, and he's got a clothing line and a record company and, you know, fashion shows, all this stuff going on. If he would just give me the littlest bit, you know, I could do so much with it. If you just give me a chance. So you want to go up to him like, hey man, please Russell, you know, just let me be a part of what you're doing. And, you know, but from his perspective, you're like a leech. You just want to take from him. And it doesn't work. And again, we've talked about this when we talked about the pickup artists and picking up clients, how it doesn't work with a client to go up to them, oh, please give me a job. It doesn't work. And he talks about in the book how you need to be going up to him with a proposal. Yeah. Like, hey, again, I'm the 21-year-old and I've thought of a new way that you could be using Twitter and that you might not have thought of because you're Russell Simmons and your brain is thinking of all these things you've got going on already. I thought of a new way to use Twitter, like say the 1-second video. Like anybody could have thought of that, you know, but only one guy did. But you go up to Russell Simmons and I got this idea, Russell, man, why don't we do 1 second in the life of Fat Farm Clothing for the month? Then he might go, hey, come talk to me. And that's how you get your foot in the door. Or like you're saying, you have this body of work, some photos, a new way of looking at something, a new perspective on hip-hop culture or something that you can show him. You need to bring something to the table. You need to be approaching him sort of as an equal and not as a leech. And I think the book explains that very well. And you touched on another point that I like in the book, which I think is interesting, that you're touching on the points that I like in the book as well. When he talks about whatever your job is, do it 100%. That you don't go, well, you know, whatever, I'm a page at CBS, so I don't work as hard as I would as if I hosted a show on CBS. His attitude in the book is like, I don't care what your job is, give it 100%. You know, and it's like when Tupac said, I'm in a bucket, but I'm riding it like it's a Benz. It's your mind state, your mental state, like what's going on in your brain. And I know for me, like I've worked for clients and then like magazines or whatever, or clothing clients, and then certain people on a team will be like, oh, it's only such and such. And you can see they're not trying to give it 100%. But I look at it like, don't take the gig. If you think the gig is beneath you, then don't take it. But if you take the gig, you give it 110%. And I'm proud of the fact that like any girl that has walked into my studio who wanted to be a model, she felt like a model. You know, if I'm shooting her, I'm shooting her the way I would shoot Tyra Banks if I could shoot Tyra Banks. I don't act like she's just some girl with a dream and some money. No. Put your heart into it. Give it 100%. And he talks about that in the book. And if you weren't doing that already, I think he explains why very well in the book.
Yes, definitely. One of the other points that I touched on, and it's like, again, it's just refreshing. You know, stop procrastinating, stop stalling, stop saying, I'm going to wait until, like he mentioned a cool story about one of his close friends, I guess, was wanting to be a lawyer. And he was like, man, Russell, I got this. I'm great in the courtroom. Can't nobody see me in the courtroom. And Russell Simmons will always ask him, well, what are you doing to, you know, further this? Well, once I get my degree, and then he would just stop him right there. I don't want to hear it. If you're not doing anything, don't wait. Don't wait. So.
Right. How many models have told me they're going to shoot with me when they lose 10 pounds. You know, how about you shoot now and then
Exactly.
shoot again when you lose the 10? And then we'll see the progression, right? And Ray and I, you know, we've done music videos, a few of them, and, you know, we'll be looking for an artist to do a music video on, and there's no charge. We're just, you know, we were just trying to get our skills up and learn all this gear that we had bought and stuff. You would talk to these people, guys and girls, and you'd be like, hey, you know, you want to do a video? And they'd go like, well, I don't have the perfect song right now. You're going, it doesn't have to be the perfect song. It just could be any song. Just do it. Like, why wait until things are perfect? And even, you look at this podcast, like, we started the podcast when we didn't have every piece of gear that we needed, and we just got the ball rolling, and we're learning as we go along, like, oh, get this piece of gear and get this piece of gear, and it'll make the podcast work better or sound better. But that idea of waiting, I call it waiting for perfection. It was something that I started encountering like 20 years ago or something when I first started doing anything photo related, that people, I always called it, they're waiting for perfection. They're waiting for all the stars to line up. It's never going to happen. It's not going to all line up. Just do it now and stop waiting for the new camera, the new losing 10 pounds or anything. Just get out there and do it. So I think he really made the point really, really well.
Yes.
You know, but just one last thing I wanted to talk about was where Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter fits in or does not fit in.
Okay.
How do you see those things in terms of when you're trying to make your mark? Where do they fit in, and where are they in your brain in terms of helping you build what you want to build for the future?
It's a good marketing strategy, and I've read that in a lot of, you know, business books, that social marketing is at its biggest right now. You have Tumblr, you have Twitter, Facebook, everything. So I would use it as just a way of getting my name out there, not just following Boo Boo from down the street who takes pictures of him and his boys on the corner, but I try to follow people that are up and coming or that are already on, you know, just to, you know, see if we can collaborate, do any work, you know, whatever. So they come into hand. They're really handy.
Right. I think I get a little mixed on it, because sometimes I like it. I like the idea that, like, I meet someone and then I follow them forever. Like, there's just something interesting about that to me, that you encounter someone just like on this one-off thing, and then for like years later you still know what they're doing. Something fascinates me about that, and I like that aspect. But when I go to my Twitter or Instagram feed and I start seeing like a lot of words, you know, people do these things where you like post like a chalkboard with all these words.
I hate tweetgrams.
Right, like a tweetgram.
Yeah,
and I'm just like, that's not what I'm looking for. I just want like the diary of your life and pictures, or little snippets of words that just keeps me connected to you, but not when you're trying to be funny, like artificially. And that kind of irks me with it. But the other mistake I think sometimes people make with it is like, it's easy to make yourself feel more famous than you really are, or more successful than you are on Twitter. Anybody can throw up, you know, John Ricard Photography Incorporated and tweet things to make it look like I'm super successful. And I think the mistake is when you believe that. Like, if you want to throw that out there to project what you want, I think that's fine. But at the point where you believe it, and instead of getting out there and doing the work, you know, camera work, podcast, you need a camera and you got to get out there and do some work. And if you're not doing the work because you think you get so many likes on your photos, and anecdotally a couple of people from Facebook are hiring you, and you're not doing it for real, I think that is a trap that people fall in. Like for example, like there's this bodega in my neighborhood, right? And like every couple of months they have the Coors girls come to the bodega and they have this little poster, these girls like in little snow outfits, and it's like the Coors girls are going to be here. And I'm always telling my wife, yeah, I'm going to go meet the Coors girls. And of course I never bother. But that's the kind of gig you could get hired for that. Like some local marketing guy who set that up could hire you for like $300 to go shoot the Coors girls at the bodega. And then you shoot that. Now, is it really right to go put on your website like your client list and then go like Coors? Like, is Coors really your client? Like, when I see Coors as your client, what are we supposed to think? We're thinking you're doing the Coors ads on the buses, not 3 girls at the bodega who got like $50 each. Like, that type of thing is very easy to put across on Twitter. This idea of like, yeah, I shoot for Coors. No, you don't shoot for Coors. They're not hiring you for campaigns. You're not making money with a production budget and assistants and all this other nonsense and catered lunches or whatever. Like, little $300 gig at the bodega. But as long as you know the truth, I think it's cool. But I just think The problem I have with Twitter and Facebook and Instagram is when I'm able to see through it too easily. When someone is trying to project that they shoot for cores, and I'm looking at it going, well, that's not really shooting for cores. That's more like shooting for the bodega. Just happens to be some cores girls there. So I think the trap is when you allow yourself to believe your own nonsense that you're throwing up there is when those things can be detrimental to your career because they stop you from doing the real work. Like, you want to put that you shoot for cores, then go out there and go really get some work that cores is going to care about and get hired by cores to do real work that pays thousands of dollars and not some 3 girls at the bodega. You know what I'm saying? So
I've definitely been using Instagram, trying to figure out how to really use it, and I've been reaching out to people, not for money. I've been reaching out to up and coming models, just so I can practice on actually shooting people in a good location. So I am starting to learn how to use it a little more.
Right, and I think the last point that I would make to someone like you is when you look at your week, the number one thing that you should have done during the course of that week should have been building your work, doing your photography. But if you can look at your week and you say, well, the majority of my week was spent on the train or watching TV or at some job that's just paying the bills that I don't care about, then you're not on the right path. Definitely. You're just not. So when you look at that weekend, sometimes you have to log it. Like if you said to me, how do you spend your time? I'd be like, yeah, I'm a photographer and I do jujitsu, but I do 2 classes a week. I spend 2 hours a week watching jujitsu. I'd probably spend more time like watching the Real Housewives of Atlanta that ends up on my TV every night that I don't want to see. I probably spend more hours of the week having that on and peripherally watching that than I do doing jujitsu. But you feel like that's how you spend your time. But sometimes it helps to actually log the time and realize how much time.
Really helps. That for me, in my case, if I don't have it on a set schedule, then I probably won't get up and do it. So the schedule really helps. And
the book that we talked about a couple of times already, The War of Art, talks about one of the solutions of getting past creative blocks is to just treat it like a 9-to-5 job. Schedule the time, like you said, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. tomorrow, I am going to just shoot. And if I don't know what to shoot, I will get out there and I'm going to work.
Because you feel like you have to because it's logged, so.
Right. It's scheduled, and you can dock yourself pay if not. Okay. So, anything you want to add to that, Ray?
I mean, I don't participate in any of that, and I'm not really sure why. I mean, there's people that I don't know, that I don't keep in touch with, and I don't want to know. So, I mean, that's just it. I don't think it hasn't impeded me from making money in photography. I don't know how to make money with those. I think it's helpful for people. What I think is important is that there is an analog component of relationships, and I think that gets laid to the wayside when you focus on this digital world with a whole bunch of friends. Right. But if you can't interact with a person one-on-one, if you can't be a good conversation with them, you can't be an interesting person with a lot of interesting ideas. If I met you and I can't talk to you and charm you, I can't make money off of you.
Yeah, ultimately.
At the end of the day, or I can't be your friend, or we can't work together. So you have to be able to not only do that digitally, but you have to do it in real
I don't think the digital will ever replace it. You're still going to need to be able to occasionally go out to lunch with someone and be interesting and make them want to work with you. Absolutely. So I definitely agree with that.
You have to have the technical side and the marketing side, so it all goes hand in hand together.
Got to have it both, but it's not easy. Go buy a camera and do the work, I think, is the solution.
Get off the couch.
Right. Get off the couch. At the end of the day, get off the couch. Do your work. Do your homework. Be a better person by working that passionate thing about you. I think that's it.
Right. Don't be lazy. Right. All right. Well, anyway, we're going to wrap this now. Okay. So if you want to find me, I think you're better finding me on Instagram instead of Twitter because at least I like that a little bit. So on Instagram, it's just John Ricard, JOHNRICARD. And just one other really quick thing is, if you have any comments on the podcast, make sure you send them to us through email or Twitter or comment on the YouTube version of it because we read it and we respond to it and it's very encouraging to us. So Medina, where do they find you?
You can find me on Instagram 24/7 at Medina L, MEDINAELLE.
And Ray, where do we find you?
You know what? You can see the stuff that I'm doing on Getty Images. You just search for my name, and hopefully I'm working, so you're seeing new stuff daily. Otherwise, you can contact me at raytamarra.com, or you can be on the lookout in the streets of New York, because I usually am working when I'm not injured. So,
right. So hopefully soon you'll be back to making some money.
Yeah.
All right. Thank everybody for tuning in.